folks. Let's go. Change it up. Bada bing. Here we go. Good evening. Let's get this out of here. Get that out the way. What's going on, y'all? Chapapa TV here on this Monday. Very educational Monday, I'd like to call it. You guys, pardon me if I sound a little bit low, but I am a bit under the weather. Just a little bit. Um, talk to you guys about that. Had to go to the hospital yesterday for the first time in Brazil. Caught a bad case of strep throat, right? Very bad case. Wait till people hop in. Got my tea going. What's going on? What's going on? Man, March went by super fast. Super fast. What's going on? Good evening. You guys know the deal. Drop a comment. Let me know who's here with me. Very educational live coming up tonight. Excuse me. Man, I got crazy sick out of nowhere. Like, I think I had a fever. No, I had the flu like 3 weeks ago, right? And then it took me like a week to get over it. I was fine. And I just caught it again last week. And then it developed into strep throat. So if you guys can't hear me, please let me know. And I'll just put my microphone up. I can't talk too loud tonight. But yeah, I got strep throat. And my insurance plan doesn't start until April 4th, I believe. My insurance out here in Brazil. So I made use of Brazil's free healthcare program. Free healthcare, right? When was the last time you heard that? Or where was the last time you heard that? So how did the healthcare work? I just basically went to the hospital with my ID, told them what was going on. Saw a doctor, he wrote me a prescription, and I was out of there. Didn't have to pay nothing. Zip, zap, nada, folks. They call it SUS. So, they have the general hospitals and they have the private hospitals for those want to be fancy, those with private insurance. You could go that route. Me, I'm at the route just general hospital. Listen, I need to buy antibiotics for all my strep throat. And you know what? That's one thing I miss about the Dominican Republic. In the DR, like, I didn't need a prescription for antibiotics. I could legit have antibiotics delivered to me to my door through WhatsApp. That's what I miss about the Dominican Republic. So I had to go to the emergency room yesterday. Doctor wrote me out the prescription for the antibiotics for my strep throat, and then I've just been chilling. When I tell you guys, I haven't left the house for days until Sunday. I had to go to the ER because I didn't know what was going on, but I'm doing better now. Free healthcare, that shocked me. I went, there expecting to pay for at least a doctor consultation. In Dominican Republic, that you guys know you gotta pay for that. At least, what do I pay? Anytime in the Dominican Republic, I had to go somewhere outside the Veterans Clinic. I would pay 1,000 to maybe 1,500 pesos just to see the doctor. Here, zip zap nada. I went in, took a ticket, showed them my ID, told them what was going on, waited to see the doctor. Doctor checked, verified, gave me the prescription. Went to the pharmacy, bought the prescription on my own. Antibodies cost like $5 maybe. In DR they were like 100 pesos per whatever. So that's been my story. The flu's been kicking my butt. Strep throat's been kicking my butt. I'm ready for March to be over. It's gone by fast, but I feel like it's been a long month because I've been sick for half of it. So, um, Glad you guys are here tonight. Hopefully, all you future retirees or those of you who are retired right now, all my veterans, my guests is backstage. But you guys know how we start the show. Real nice.
Chapapa.
All right, all right. Welcome to today's episode of Chapapa TV. I'm going to introduce to you my guest tonight, the man who made all of this possible. Without Mike's help, I'd probably be bouncing around South America, which isn't a bad thing, but I do like a little bit of stability. You guys know I carry a lot of stuff. But have no sounds. Can you guys hear me? Have no sounds playing in my thing right now. But let me introduce to you my brother from the down under, Mike. Mike, what's going on?
Hey man, how you doing?
Can you hear me? I can't hear nobody.
I can
Can
hear
you hear
you
me?
fine. I can hear you fine, Freed.
That's strange. Give me 1 second.
No
There's
problem.
always something, huh? No, that's what it is. Got it. Yep. Can you guys hear me now?
I can still hear you.
Okay, perfect. Ladies and gentlemen, the guy who's going to be educating the masses tonight. Let's give a big round of applause for Mike. Big round. So, Mike, how's it going, brother?
I am doing really well. Just got back from Florida a couple of days ago to a mountain of work, but doing really well. Better than you by the sounds of it. You haven't been well.
Oh yeah, I'm just ready for March to be over. I've been home
Yeah.
ridden. I'm just over it. How was Florida and everything?
Florida's good. First week was meant to be vacation, but took my laptop. That was a big mistake. So it ended up being some work. And the second week was training for our immigration business, and that went really well.
Okay, cool. So, Mike, tell the good folks on YouTube, a little bit about yourself.
Okay, I'm an Australian. Came to Brazil for 5 weeks, and that was 8 years ago. I never really left Brazil, just fell in love with it. Love the country. Got married, gained permanent residency. And my wife and I run a couple of businesses. One of them is the immigration services, and the other one is a language business, but it's not your typical just English classes for Brazilians. We do a lot of corporate work. Our language business is also accredited by Polícia Federal to issue certificates of enrollment to support student visas and student residencies. So that's a bit handy. And we have operations or teams in Sao Paulo, Rio, and Brasilia. But we cover the whole of Brazil.
Okay. Talk to us a little bit about what you meant when you said you came to Brazil for 5 days, and that was 8 years ago.
5 weeks. I came to Brazil for 5 weeks. I was actually on my way to Germany to learn German. It was a one-way ticket. I had 5 weeks in Brazil. I came to Brazil because cigarettes are cheap. So to put that into perspective, a packet of cigarettes, Marlboros, is $2 in Brazil, $2 US dollars. In Florida, I think they're about $10 US dollars. And that same packet of cigarettes in Australia is $40 US. So you can blame cigarettes for my venture to Brazil, but I fell in love with it, and my future wife, instantly. So 5 weeks turned into 8 years very easily, and it goes very, very fast, very fast.
So, were you in charge of extending yourself? So I granted, you didn't fly back any time during that 5 weeks, right? You just stayed and stayed.
Oh, for 5 weeks, no, I stayed. I had a 3 month tourist visa. Back then, Australians needed to get a formal visa, a lot like what they're about to bring back. And I'll talk about that a bit later. I needed a visa, but as soon as I received my passport back with the visa in Melbourne, Australia, I was flying 24 hours later. So I came for 5 weeks. The Polícia Federal, the Brazilian Federal Police, renewed my tourist visa. They felt sorry for me, so they renewed it again. And by that stage, I was going to Polícia Federal with Amanda, my wife, not my wife at the time, but my wife now. And she's very convincing. And she got me a third or a fourth tourist visa extension. And yeah, it all worked out. Having said that, I don't go to Polícia Federal at all. We have people in the office that go to Polícia Federal. I don't speak Portuguese. They do. They have the rapport. They obviously Brazilians. They know exactly what to do, what the application process is, what to ask, what not to ask, and all that.
Okay. So how has been living in Brazil, if you could sum it up quickly for us, how has that been for you? And would you recommend it to anyone who's on the edge of, say, trying to live in another country?
Yeah, I think Brazil, look, everybody has their own experience, their own DNA of what they want. I was in Australia 14 months ago, 15 months ago, and I couldn't wait to get out of Australia. I was visiting my mother. As an Australian, we love to travel, and it's a big world. So if you have listeners that are looking for a change, looking for an experience, Brazil is a big country. It has a lot to offer. It's not just Amazon or the beach. There's everything in between. And I think, coming to Brazil could be, a 3 month experience. It could be a 3 year experience, or it could be 13 years. It could be whatever you want it to be.
Right.
And I think that's important. Like if you're an American, as an example, and you're approaching retirement, or let's say you're in your 20s and you want to just experience the world, Brazil has a lot to offer for 3 months on a tourist visa, 6 months, 12 months, 2 years on a student residency or a digital nomad or things like that. And if you want to do something a bit longer, there's investor visa, there's retirement visa. And look, I personally think Brazil has a lot to offer. Just because you come to Brazil doesn't mean you have to stay in Brazil. Once you have residency, you're free to travel the world. It's multiple entry. So as an example, in your case, without divulging too much information, you have residency. You could fly in and out of Brazil until they run out of jet fuel.
Right. Okay. No, you could tonight we could use my case as an example. So that's all right. That's why we're here. So we have a lot of veterans that'll be watching along with the retirees. So thank you to all you guys. Make sure you guys like the video on your way in, on your way out. I'll be posting Mike's description. Mike's information in the description. So, Mike, can you give us the rundown list first of the different types of residencies for foreigners?
Sure, it's not a problem. Generally, we we classify the residencies in a pyramid. Down the bottom, you have student residency and digital nomad residency. The application process for these two residency types is different, but the ultimate outcome is the same for digital nomad and for student residency. The outcome is it's issued for 1 year, it's renewable for a second year, so maximum 2 years for each. And that is when you do a student residency, that's with a language course. If you do it at a university or a college, it's as long as the college course or university course goes for. You can open a bank account in Brazil. You have multiple entry rights under those two. And essentially the two residencies there allow you to work, but not for a Brazilian company in Brazil. Above those two residency types or visa types is retirement and investor. Now, the retirement residency, essentially requires only two things. One, that the person is genuinely retired. And the second element of the retirement residency is the ability to bring in $2,000 a month to Brazil. Now, if you've got Social Security of $1,900 or $1,800, there are ways that we've been able to bridge that gap to 2,000. So it's not the end of the world. It's not a hard limit or minimum limit. With the investor residency or investor visa, there's three flavors, and the most common flavor by far is the purchasing of real estate, of an apartment or a house. In the south of Brazil, it's 1 million reais. In the northeast of Brazil, it's 700,000 reais. The two critical components of the investor visa is that the property or the title or the deed of the property must be free and clear, or what I call free and clear. What that means is that the property you're purchasing or the real estate that you're purchasing must be, the seller must have a right to sell that. The title must be free and clear. It can't have all these city taxes owing on it and all these sorts of things. The other vital element is that the transfer into Brazil is done registered by the Brazilian Central Bank. The investor visa is actually pretty good when you look at it. 1 million reais in Rio de Janeiro is more or less about 200,000 US dollars. Now, in certain cities of the world, like Sydney or Melbourne or San Francisco or places like that, a car space costs more than that. The other thing that's really interesting with the investor visa is it comes with work rights. So you can form your own company, you can be an employer, you can be an employee. The other one, the next one above in that pyramid is essentially when you claim family reunion status. What that means is you have a Brazilian citizen partner, Brazilian citizen civil union or married partner, or you have a Brazilian born baby, a Brazilian born child. The other, that by far is the best one you can get. After that, it's basically naturalization. So the family
elaborate on that one a little bit more, please?
The family reunion?
Yes.
Well, okay, so let's say hypothetically Freed finds his forever partner in Brazil, falls in love with her head over heels, and she's a Brazilian citizen. And for the record, it could be a he, right? Brazil does not discriminate. You can have same-sex couples. That's not a problem. But Freed finds his forever partner. We'll assume that it's a she. And they decide to either form a civil union or marriage. Now, civil union is essentially what I call married or marriage light. What that means essentially is that they're forming a union. I guess in the USA, they call that cohabitation. In Australia, they call it de facto. And it maintains the individual single status. With those, the other option is if Freed has a child with a Brazilian partner and the child is born in Brazil. That baby that is born in Brazil by default becomes a Brazilian citizen, a lot like the United States. And with that, Freed can claim family reunion status, which is permanent residency. It's issued for 9 years. It's renewable provided the reason for the application remains. The individual can pretty much do anything a Brazilian can do except vote in elections, run for president or mayor or governor, or join the army. Apart from that, I have permanent residency. There's not much I can't do except for those things. So the application for family reunion status in that permanent residency is through a Brazilian citizen partner, whether it's civil union or marriage or a child being born in Brazil. There is another way we do implement family reunion status. So we actually have clients that a couple from America where one of them will claim retirement status. The other one claims family reunion because they're married. So once one of the applicants gains residency status, the married person, and that marriage could have taken place in the USA, they the couple attain residency, one through retirement or investor or whatever it is, and the other one as the married couple. The family reunion status becomes subject to the same conditions as the primary applicant.
Okay,
It
so
seems confusing. It seems confusing, and it is a little bit confusing because it's this in these aspects. There's a lot of pieces to the puzzle, and there's a lot of strategies to develop to provide solutions for clients.
okay, and if any of the viewers have any questions, you guys could type out your questions. Mike will be more than happy to answer them. So I have about two, Mike. So in the first retirement visa you mentioned, you stated that you absolutely have to be retirement. So who falls under that? Can it be someone who like maybe isn't retired but they have income coming in and they have proof of that income coming in monthly, or it's like basically a letter that Brazil goes over stating that okay, this person is retired from this workforce and they're entering X amount of dollars.
Yeah, that's interesting. You asked that question because each country uh, declares their citizens to be retired in a different way. So certain countries will have an age of 52, 55, 54. However, in the United States, it's not so clear cut. So for American citizens, what we're finding is a lot of our clients from America who claim retirement status will use who have previously been in the military. So the absolute requirement for retirement status is some form of documentation from the host government or the home government. So it could be, a state level government, or it could be a federal government in the USA that says or states that the individual is retired. Now, that's not that easy sometimes to obtain. However, the vast majority of Americans who can attain this statement are veterans, because usually what they have is a Veterans Affairs statement, a benefit statement, and in that statement, it'll declare how much the person receives as a benefit. And more importantly, what it'll say is that the person is disabled or has been disabled or is disabled. And Brazil actually recognizes that as retired. So, as an example, we could have a client that used to be in the military that is 30 years old and has a disability. That's it. If the Veterans Affairs statement says disability, the age of the individual has no relevance. So, to give you an example, we have secured retirement status for an American who's 28 years old. Now, a lot of people in the Facebook community say, oh, it's 65, it's 60, it's this, that. And I'm the first person to turn around and say, no, it's not. So the vital element is that the person must be retired. They may have a document from Social Security, they may have a document from Veterans Affairs, but they do need a document to meet that verification for Brazil.
Okay, yeah, you just answered this question. What was good? It says, is there an age restriction on any of the retirement visas?
None, none. The youngest we've secured is 28 years old. I don't want to disclose too much about the individual, but 28 years old, former veteran, um, and was able to verify in her VA statement that she was was entitled to disability and met the $2,000 requirement, and we were able to secure her retirement residency. What happens if you have a Brazilian parent? That's an interesting one. So if a person has a Brazilian parent, I would be asking questions like, uh, why does or does not the child have or not have Brazilian citizenship? There may be reasons for this. We have a client or a couple, married couple, in the northeast of Brazil, where the wife had a Brazilian birth certificate. Now, normally in almost all cases, a Brazilian birth certificate would mean that the person is a Brazilian citizen. However, she also had US citizenship, and about 40 years ago, she lost her Brazilian citizenship through the military dictatorship. She entered Brazil on a US passport. They realized she was a Brazilian, and they asked her, "You can't have both, you can only have one." She surrendered her Brazilian passport. So how we got around that is we got her husband retirement residency, and we got her family reunion. So if you have a Brazilian parent, we would want to know why or how can we get the child of a Brazilian parent citizenship. And if we can get that child, and that child could be 30, 40, 50 years old, if we can get the child Brazilian citizenship, then the application for residency becomes totally redundant because they're a citizen.
Okay. So tonight we have a lot. There's going to be a lot of questions coming in from veterans and retirees, like police officers. I have a friend who's getting ready to retire from the state trooper. So first question here is that does the person have to be rated at vet as a vet 100% veteran, or can it be less?
When you say 100% veteran, do you mean 100% disability?
Yeah, 100% disability as in the income. So it's like you stated earlier, the threshold for that income to qualify for the retirement visa, is it the amount of money, or is it the letter stating like, hey, this person is disabled and we're paying them this amount every
Yes.
month?
So let's say that they have a VA statement that says they're disabled and they receive $1,950 a month. What we've done in the past is we have bridged that gap by having the client set up a CD in the USA for $5,000, $10,000. And what that shows Brazil is that $50 gap can be drawn down from a CD. So the $2,000 doesn't have to come only from a VA statement. It doesn't have to come from one source. It can come from multiple sources.
Okay. Teleme G's asks, how long does the process take to get a retirement visa?
Well, you're probably in a better position to answer that because we did your retirement status.
Okay.
There is an element to be careful here. It really no two clients are ever the same. So one client could be in USA, one client could be in Brazil, but you're probably in a better position to answer that.
Okay. Before I answer that, I want to ask you, did me having to leave okay, so we started the process in July. Did me having to leave Brazil briefly in October say extend that process, or it had nothing to do from the time you were submitting the documents?
No, so in your case, it made no difference at all. I would estimate for a US citizen in Brazil and who stays in Brazil, so they enter Brazil on a tourist visa and they transition from tourist status to retirement status, I would estimate 3 to 5 months. The reason for that is some things are in Brazil's control, some things are actually in the US side of things. So as an example, if you're an American in Brazil and you want to remain in Brazil, the process is essentially for any residency is a birth certificate and a criminal history check from every country the person has lived in, not vacationed, not tourism, but lived in. So in your case, Freed, that is a birth certificate out of the US and an FBI report. And if you are in Brazil, that means we need to take your fingerprints, we need to submit a request for an FBI report. Once that FBI report has been issued, we need to get both the birth certificate and the FBI report apostilled. Now, apostling for an FBI report takes approximately 6 weeks to 8 weeks. That's what the US State Department has at the moment. They've got an 8-week delay. Once that FBI report apostilled and the birth certificate apostilled and the other documents arrive into Brazil. We then submit an application to the ministry. They have 4 weeks to assess the individual's application. Once that application has been approved by the ministry, it'll get published to the Union Diary. And what that in Brazil, the Union Diary is essentially a government gazette. And essentially it says Freed has Freed's name, here's the law that he's applied for, the investor stream, the approval, and his nationality. Once it's been published to the diary, the government gazette, then we make an appointment for Polícia Federal, the Brazilian Federal Police, to apply for the residency. So in reality, with all the delays or the backlog of getting apostles, of getting fingerprints and couriering them up, couriering them down, all of this sort of thing, you're looking at between 3 and 5 months. I'm not sure if that's a good estimate that we got for you, Freed.
Yeah, so I actually I believe this is the form you was talking about, right? One of these from my protocol.
Can't see that. I'm sorry to say.
Yeah, I believe this is the form you was talking about.
That looks like a sworn translation.
Yeah, I have. So basically, what you guys did, you translated the VA form here,
Yes.
and then there's another translated here. I think it might be my birth certificate. But for me, I think it actually would have been shorter. So I applied as a veteran, guys. So I think for me, it actually would have been shorter if I didn't have to leave Brazil for a few weeks. So we started the process in July. I had to step out of um, Brazil in October. And like Mike says, it helps if you're here in the country. You can be in the States to do your FBI background check, and then you can also mail it to Mike, which is what I did, and my birth certificate. But you can be here. Mike can help you with your fingerprints and your background report. But yeah, I think 3 to 5 months is correct. So I came
Yeah.
back end of October. You submitted the documents, and no, I so yeah, you submitted the documents November 1st. In December, I had my appointment at the federal.
Yeah. The vital thing for your listeners and viewers to understand is residency in Brazil the individual must be in Brazil. So as an example, even if your application was assessed and approved, and if Freed was in the USA or in Europe, he must be in Brazil to apply for residency. So the residency is done at Polícia Federal, which is Brazilian Federal Police, which must be done in Brazil. So while Freed did go overseas, did go back to the USA, even if his assessment was successful, which it was, he would still need to re-enter Brazil to apply for residency at Brazilian Federal Police. So in reality, the investor residency, the retirement residency, digital nomad residency, these three require an assessment by the ministry, but the application for residency must be done at Polícia Federal.
Okay. Yeah, this sounds about right. So, if you guys are considering it, you may have to spend some time in Brazil. So, I know once we had submitted my documents, Mike was like, don't go anywhere for the next 30 days. And it was 30 days exactly. 30 days when I got the call to go down to the Federal, did an interview with my packet, and took my pictures and stuff. So, um, let's say that there's someone who in the States right now owns a house, right? And they're renting the house out and they're
Mhm.
getting that income monthly and they want to use that income to try to apply for a visa, right? What type of visa can they qualify for?
Well, the visa uh, that they apply for will ultimately be determined by their circumstances. Like, for instance, how long do they want to be in Brazil? So if they want to reside in Brazil for a number of years, say 2, 3, 4, 5 years, they could use that property and the cash flow thrown off from that or generated from that property towards retirement So a person, for instance, that has, let's say, a VA benefit of $1,500, and they have an investment property that throws off cash of $800, they could amalgamate the two together. 1,500 plus 800 is 2,300. Done. They meet the funding requirements by amalgamating those two together. So the retirement residency might be applicable. However, they would still need some sort of verification that they're genuinely retired.
Mm.
If they have a property and they want to retain that property and just let it throw off cash, they could do student residency. They might be entitled to digital nomad, although digital nomad is not as popular as people make it out to be.
Why is that?
I think because it's relatively new, a lot of consulates around the world aren't familiar with it. A lot of the feedback we're getting from clients is that they did try and apply, say, in Europe. I won't name the consulates because I don't want to I don't want to slander them or anything, but a lot of the consulates essentially didn't want to assist, or they did. One consulate said they don't even issue it. So that's one of the reasons. The other reason is Brazil doesn't fully appreciate how foreigners and digital nomads work. They work as consultants through their own company. So in the USA, you might have your own LLC that you do consulting work for, and that's standard practice for a digital nomad. But a lot of the applications that we see people apply for think that is acceptable. Brazil says not really. We need to see contracts from clients. Some people rightfully are concerned about sharing contracts and they don't want to drag their clients into it. That's one of the reasons, or a couple of the reasons. A third reason is tax. So once a person has residency in Brazil and they spend at least 183 days per year in Brazil, they become a tax resident. And tax residency is totally different to immigration. So once they become a tax resident, they are supposed to lodge or file tax returns, file their taxes in Brazil. Brazil does assess global income a lot like the USA. So there are ways to mitigate that. However, now you have to hire a lawyer who has experience with taxation, both in Brazil and USA, and it becomes a bit of a chasing rabbits down a rabbit hole, because most Americans have their tax affairs in order, have spent years manicuring and carefully cultivating a CPA, and they don't want any impact from outside regarding that. And that's an issue that I think they didn't quite fully appreciate or consider when they were discussing and passed the laws regarding digital nomad. I can say that out of all the American citizens, US citizens who come to me wanting or thinking that they want a digital nomad residency, once I explain to them the taxation issue, the tax issue, all of them do a 180-degree turn and go with the student residency.
Okay,
So that's something to be aware of.
Okay, so that falls for the people who aren't retired, but bringing either $2,000 or more a month, and the student visa. I have a friend actually in Rio. He uses the student visa to live here. So the student visa, in your opinion, is the better route to go through instead of the digital nomad.
In my opinion, it is, but
Okay.
that is generalizing, and I want to be careful here, because while the comments I make are generalistic, no two clients are ever the same. I think you probably know, Fried, we tailor solutions to individual circumstances.
Mm-hmm.
No two clients are ever the same. However, the digital nomad residency or digital nomad visa has tax implications, because the individual who is awarded or granted a digital nomad residency has already disclosed who they work for, how much they earn, where the money is to Brazil. So it's hard to then turn around and say, no, I'm not going to file taxes, because Brazil can assess that your taxes in absentia without you filing. So that's just something to be aware of with the digital nomad. There are ways to avoid double taxation, but now you need to have a tax lawyer or an accountant who really does know their stuff. We do have a tax lawyer or a lawyer with a tax division who speaks good English that we can refer clients to. But again, it's a little bit of a rabbit warren in that you have to pay a lawyer to avoid double taxation.
Okay. I have a question about tax later on, but I'll bring that up. Let's get to these comments. Thank you, Jojo, for the super sticker. Make sure you guys, hit the super chats, the cash apps. They really do help support the channel. Ricky says in his case, he was born in Haiti, had the Brazilian passport in his youth, but is now 41 and wants to go live in Brazil.
Okay, so we would probably, the first thing we would look for is what happened to your Brazilian citizenship. What happened to your Brazilian passport? Not that passport, but what happened to your Brazilian citizenship? Because if we can solve that issue, the Brazilian citizenship, and get you another passport, you don't need residency. You're a citizen, and that's probably the first thing we look for. Is if a person had at one stage a passport, are they still a citizen? If they are a citizen, well, it's fairly simple. We probably would help them, update their voter registration. Probably help them if they need help making sure that they're not subject to military enlistment, national service, or that they have an exemption, things like that. However, if they lost their passport, or if they lost their citizenship, the question becomes, how did they lose was it forced, or was it voluntarily surrendered? Things like that. So if a person previously had Brazilian citizenship, we'd want to know how it was lost, if it was lost, how it was lost, things like that. We have had a case where, as mentioned earlier, a client of ours, the wife, was born in Brazil, had citizenship, lost it during the military dictatorship, and we were still able to solve that problem for her by having her husband claim retirement status and she gaining family reunion. And that was one of my proudest moments, being able to secure a Brazilian-born person residency. It was a good feeling.
Okay, so before I get to my next point, I want to touch up the family reunion one more time. I know some of you guys who have lived in Colombia or Dominican Republic, and you've tried to go on a route of getting your residency there by getting married. Like the marriage process here, how long does that take if someone wants to get married to Brazilian nationals?
It mostly is up to documentation. Generally speaking, I would strongly recommend most people looking at this as a project. And in the case of getting married and claiming residency, it's really two projects. One is forming the marriage. The other one is claiming residency. So I would look at it as though, if you're a chef, you're baking the main meal and then cooking baking the dessert. Two totally separate projects. Now, the first one is getting married. For an American citizen, I would estimate 2 to 3 months. Again, the reason for this is to get married in Brazil as an American, you'll need a birth certificate that is issued out of the States, obviously. It needs to be apostilled in the USA by the state that issued it. Now, that doesn't take too long, but it still takes time. The next document that the person will need is a certificate of single status, or what they call in Australia a certificate of no impediment. Every country calls it something different. But essentially what that is it's a statement from the person's government saying that they can get married. It's essentially like, for instance, in your case, Freed, if you're already married and you're not legally divorced, you can't get one. And that's Brazil's way of avoiding having people that are married 5 times, 10 times, 20 times. So those 2 documents, the key documents to getting married, when I say the key documents, there are other documents, but they're relatively easy to get. But the 2 key ones are a birth certificate, apostilled, sworn translated, and a statement of a single status. Now, there are ways to get around the single status, and that is to ask the consulate, the US consulate, to issue such a statement, and they will do that. So the documents issued out of a consulate do not need to be apostilled. So again, going back to the cartorio where a person gets married, it is usually a 1-month process. So the Brazilian and the American go into the cartorio to register with all their documents already apostilled, already sworn translated. They register their intent to get married. And then 30 days later, or 28 days later, that's when they attend and they sign with witnesses and all that. So you're looking at realistically with documentation, with apostilling, sworn translation, with the 30 days or 28 days registration, you're looking at approximately 3 months, 2 to 3 months. Having said that, we have got an American married at a cartorio here in 6 days. We had all the documentation, but from registration to signing off, it was 6 days.
Okay.
It was sort of like an urgent request, and our team was able to negotiate that with the cartorio.
All right. This seems like it may, to me, this question sounds a little complicated. Ricky says he has never lived in Brazil. I believe he has the Brazilian parents. He says, I have not renewed my passport in many years. Also, would family reunion apply for my girlfriend who lives with me here in the Dominican Republic?
Okay, so maybe keep that message up from, I've never lived in Brazil and have not renewed my passport. When he says passport, I'm assuming, does he mean Brazilian passport?
Yeah, Brazilian passport.
Well, the fact that he had a Brazilian passport at one stage indicated that he was a Brazilian citizen at one stage. So again, what we'd want to do in his case is see if we can restore his citizenship if he lost it. See if he still has citizenship, but his passport's just expired. That's also a likely possibility, that his passport is expired, but he's still a citizen. Now, if he's still a Brazilian citizen, his girlfriend would not actually be entitled to family reunion because it's just his girlfriend. And I don't mean anything disrespectful there. Brazil does not recognize a girlfriend as a family reunion partner. However, if he were to form a civil union or a marriage, then yes, provided he still has his Brazilian citizenship. His passport may have expired, but he may still very well be a Brazilian citizen. A person does not need to live in Brazil to be, or have ever lived in Brazil to be, a Brazilian citizen. They may have accrued Brazilian citizenship through their parents.
Okay, so let's say for his case, because there might be other cases similar to his, to where one expat might want to leave a country, their significant other in country, Brazil. Would it be better for you? Would it work easier for you if you were to get married here in Brazil or come to Brazil already married?
It's not easy. It's not whether it's easier for us, for our clients. We don't advise our clients on what's easier for us. We advise our clients to let us know what their circumstances are, what they want to do, and then we tailor a solution for them. We may advise them that, hey, if you want to do X, that's okay, we can do that. But are you aware that doing Y is substantially cheaper? But ultimately, we're guided by what our clients want. So in that case, I personally believe that it's easier to get married in Brazil. And the reason for that is the marriage certificate is issued in Brazil. It's in Portuguese. It doesn't need to be apostilled. It doesn't need to be sworn translated. It's already registered as a public document. So Getting married in Brazil, I believe, is easier, but I don't want to say to people, as a general rule, do that. What I want to tell our clients is, you do what you want to do, and we'll develop a solution, provided it's legal.
Okay.
So in the case of this person, if they decide to form a civil union or a marriage, and they're still a Brazilian citizen, I would recommend doing it in Brazil if possible, because if the marriage has been occurred outside of Brazil, it would need to be either registered at the consulate, and then with the consulate inscription, they would need to register it in Brazil at a cartório, or if they have the marriage outside of Brazil, it would need to be apostilled or legalized, and then once they enter Brazil, it would be sworn translated and then registered at the cartório. It's doable. So if clients want to, get married in Tahiti or Bahamas, by all means, go do it if that's what they want, and we will help them and we'll solve the problem for them. We're not about to say, hey, it's easier in Brazil, do it in Brazil. That's not how we operate.
Okay, perfect. So you guys heard it. Next question, and it kind of ties into what I wanted to ask you before. Borika and Miluna asks, so if I have a retirement visa, do I have to pay taxes?
Okay, we get this one quite a bit. We all have to pay taxes. What the person's really asking about is, do I have to pay taxes on my Social Security, on my Veterans Affairs benefits, all that sort of thing? The answer to that is, I can't really give you a solid answer. What I can say is, because I'm not a tax expert in Brazil, what I can say is this: after 183 days of being in Brazil, the individual becomes a tax resident. Being a tax resident does not necessarily mean that the person will have to pay taxes. There are treaties between Brazil and other countries. There are also methods to avoid double taxation. To that end, we have a lawyer who speaks English, who's fantastic at this. She has a tax division in her company, and she is able to answer these questions. So I'm not a tax expert, but I'm sure that the answer to this is, you can avoid paying taxes, income taxes, on your benefits or your income in Brazil if you're paying tax in another jurisdiction. So if you're an American already paying taxes in America, there are ways to mitigate that in Brazil, but I'm not the guy to speak to.
Okay.
The person is exactly.
Hold on, Mike. You were breaking up a little.
I apologize. So I'm not the person to ask. However, I would say that, because I'm not a tax expert, what I would say is that there are ways to legally avoid paying taxes in Brazil on your benefits, on your income, if you pay taxes in the US. However, to do that, you will need to engage some sort of tax expert. We do have somebody that we can refer our clients to. We do that all the time. She is very good. She's a lawyer. She has a tax division. All the feedback we get from or about Jacqueline, that's her name, is really good, and she speaks really good English.
Okay. Yeah, I'm gonna have to hit you up for that information, because I was thinking about that myself, on when I would have to pay taxes and how much, or if I ever have to pay them. Because like you said, I probably don't even have to pay them, but just to be on the safe side.
Absolutely, and in your case, because I know the background, the answer to that would honestly be, we would refer you to Jacqueline, and she would be able to definitively answer that question. Immigration for us keeps us up late at night. We work pretty much 24/7, or I work 24/7. We don't have really the bandwidth to add tax. Tax itself in Brazil is a very, very big can of worms.
Okay, perfect. Next question. He asks, how long is the retirement visa good for?
Okay, so depending on the person's age, um, it's initially issued, I think, for 1 or 2 years. It's renewable though. So if a person is, say, 40 years old or 50 years old, it's issued for up to 4 years. Now, what that means is it could be issued for 1 year or 2 years. However, it's renewable. At the 4 year mark of renewing, you can request that it be converted to indefinite status. The retirement residency after a certain age, don't quote me on this, but I think it might be 65. If you apply for that, it's indefinite from the beginning. That's what I believe.
Hmm.
Um, I need to really check that, but it's issued. It's issued initially for under a certain age. I think it's 65. It's issued for 1 to 4 years. If it's issued for 1 year, it can be renewed. If it's issued for 2 years, it can be renewed. However, at the 4 year mark, you can request that it be converted to indefinite status.
Okay, so at my 4 year mark, I could request that.
Yes.
Okay, that's
And
perfect.
we'll help. We're going to help you get indefinite status.
Perfect. Thank you. Yeah, I want to show off this shiny ID card that I got, towards the end, and I ask some more questions on what we could do with this. But
Did you
let's.
did you pick it up, Freed?
Yeah, I picked it up.
Woo! You got one. Excellent. Well done,
Yeah,
mate.
perfect, perfect. Thank you so much for the help. I picked it up. This is what I use now. I don't even use my driver's license anymore. I just go out and I give them this, and it's like they're shocked because, believe it or not, people, Brazilians don't have a lot of Brazilians don't have plastic IDs. They have like a paper document, and it's weird how they do the identification on it.
Yeah. Free. That's actually quite interesting because my wife, being a Brazilian, sort of says that Brazilians get ripped off. They have an RG, which is a citizenship document, but it's a piece of paper. It's a
Hmm.
flimsy piece of paper, as where residents, foreigners, get a solid piece of plastic. So yeah, it's interesting in that regard.
Okay. Does Brazil have Union Libre? I don't know what it would be called here, but a Union
Civil.
Libre, yeah, civil union. So basically, you go somewhere, you sign like, hey, I'm living with this person, I'm taking care of this person, insurance, whatever. I had to do that in Dominican Republic to get my ex-girlfriend insurance. So like kind of like a civil union. We didn't get married, but it was kind of like, hey, these two people are together. I'm responsible for her, yada yada, and that helped me get insurance.
Yeah, that's well. I don't know what Union Libre is. However, it sounds like civil union.
Hmm.
Civil union in Brazil is called União Estaval. I hope I didn't. I don't speak Portuguese, ironically, but as far as I can tell, it's União Estaval, which is civil union. Different countries call this a different thing. In Australia, it's called de facto. I think in the US they call it cohabitation, where two people live together as if they're married, but they're not married. Um, and yes, it sounds like that, Ricapeo. I hope I pronounced your name correctly. If Ricapeo is a Brazilian citizen and he has a civil union with his girlfriend, that's not his girlfriend anymore. It's now his civil union partner. Therefore, she would be entitled to Brazilian residency under family reunion. And because Ricapeo is a Brazilian citizen, he doesn't need any residency. He is a citizen.
That's very good to know. Very good to know. So, Jojo, thanks again for the super sticker. I hope we answered your question. The first residency lasts anywhere between 2 years, and after the 4 year mark, you can get it. What was that? After the 4 year mark, it can be permanent.
Yeah, so it depends what type of residency Jojo is asking about. If it's a student residency, it's issued for 1 year, renewable for a second year with a language course. If it's a university degree or a college degree or primary school or high school, it's as long as the course will last. If it's digital nomad, it's issued for 1 year, renewable for a second year. If it's retirement or investor status, it's issued for up to 4 years. If it's issued for less, it will be, you can request that it's converted to indefinite at the 4-year mark. Family reunion is not, family reunion through a Brazilian partner or Brazilian baby is 9 years renewable. So your card, Freed, I have a card like that. It expires in 9 years after it was issued.
Oh, okay. Hoping to get to that point. He also asks for the retirement residency. Can I apply for my son at the same time? So, what do you mean by that, Jojo? Is your son also retired, or
No, it's his son. I understand this because we're dealing with a client about this at the moment. So if Jojo has retirement status, his wife or civil union partner would be entitled to apply for family reunion status.
Oh.
This is where, yeah. So family reunion is not just for a Brazilian wife or girlfriend or husband or boyfriend, like in that sense, or a child. Family reunion can come from investor, student, retired, digital nomad, any of that. So Freed, for instance, if you got married tomorrow to a German citizen, because you have residency here, the German citizen would be entitled to family reunion in Brazil. And the German citizen would be subject to the same conditions as you because you're the sponsor of that. That's, or the caller. So with the son, if the son is under 18, yes, the son can apply for family reunion status. If the son is under, I think, 24 and in college, I believe that's the case too. If the son is older than 24 or out of college, then the son could claim family reunion status if the son is fully and legally dependent on the father. And we are helping clients process these sorts of residencies where the son or the daughter has a medical condition, which means that they're fully and medically reliant on their parents, and they're well over the age of 30.
Okay, I want you to hold that thought because I have a personal question for that. But Kwame, thank you for the super chat. Welcome. Make sure you guys hit up Kwame for any of your tax needs stateside, especially in the tri-states. You know, I went to him this year. He's helping me out with my taxes. So shout out to Kwame. Thank you for the super chat. He says, great topic, bro. I appreciate you tuning in and everybody else tuning in. Mike, I wanted to ask you, I have a friend, I have a brother of mine who takes care of his mother. His mother's retired, collects Social Security, and my friend is a disabled veteran.
Mm-hmm.
He takes care of his mother, and they're both now living in the Dominican Republic. If he were to come to Brazil and apply for residency, a retirement residency, would the family union extend to his mother?
It would, my understanding, and I'm pretty confident on this, provided the mother is fully like legally dependent on the son. Yes.
Okay.
So for instance, let's say the mother has epilepsy, or and I don't want to pull out the medical conditions. However, let's say that
well, to help you out, she does have dementia, so he does take care. Yeah.
But if he has some sort of guardianship, legal guardianship of his mother that is documented, that's the key thing here. Brazil will not just believe a verbal statement. They will need to have something in documentation, something possibly from a court that says, yes, Johnny has guardianship, legal guardianship of his mother. Absolutely. Yes. That's not a problem.
Okay, that's good. So basically, it's from my understanding, once you're able yourself to get the retirement visa, the door opens up for those closely attached to you, like wife or parents or sons and daughters under 18.
Yes. So once in your case, Freed, it's easier if I just use you. You have gained retirement residency in Brazil. So if you have a son or a daughter that's under 18, no problem. If
Okay.
you have a son or a daughter that's up to 24 years of age but's in college or university, no problem. If you have a son or daughter that is older than 18 but not in college, then if that son or daughter is fully and legally dependent upon you, no problem. Uh, if you have family members, that's where it becomes more challenging. If you have a wife, no problem. That's family reunion straight away.
Okay.
So
Perfect.
if you were to get married, Freed, to a foreigner,
From
someone who's
Germany.
not, yeah, from Germany, the German citizen would be entitled to claim family reunion status off of your retirement status.
Okay. I think that's very, very informative. That's information, guys, and I really thank Mike for coming on tonight because this is information you really can't find just through Googling or on in the WhatsApp groups, anything like that. And besides that, if there's any nice German lady out there watching this and you'd like to come to Brazil, just send me an email. If you think I'm a nice guy to get to know, send me an email and we'll get you squared away. So I want to go across some terms that a lot of travelers, whether they're retirees or visiting, will hear their first time in Brazil. And one of those terms is CPF.
Ah, the good old CPF.
Yes. So, how can we explain the CPF to someone who's basically brand new to this? You land in Brazil for the first time. You go to Claro to buy a chip, or you go to the gas station to buy a Gatorade, and they ask you if you want to write down if you have a CPF. So, what's a CPF?
A CPF, essentially, in layman's terms, is a tax ID. So there is a history about how a CPF came about. My wife has explained it to me. I forgot it in about 10 seconds. However, a CPF essentially is a tax ID. In the US, you could loosely relate it to or equivalency of social security number. So, as a foreigner in the United States, you're not getting a bank account without a social security number or an ITIN, an individual tax number identification number. In Brazil, if you want to do a financial transaction, and I'm not talking about buying a Gatorade at a supermarket, that's voluntary. But if you want to enter into a financial transaction, like open a bank account, you will absolutely need a CPF. If you want to join CrossFit and you don't have a CPF, your life is going to get very challenging very quickly. If you want to register a SIM card for your phone, so you can buy the SIM card, no problem. But once it comes to registering the SIM card, you will need a CPF. If you want to take a domestic flight within Brazil, years ago, I think 10 years ago, there was a requirement to provide a CPF. Nowadays, you can enter a US passport number instead, essentially number. And you will not be able to open a bank account in Brazil without a CPF. You will not be able to join a gym on some sort of membership without a CPF. Yeah, I think about 18 months ago, I joked on Facebook that a foreigner, you need a CPF to cross the road in Brazil. And some drongo, some fool took me literally and badgered me for it for the next 6 months. So now I don't joke about that anymore. But a CPF is essentially the best example of that is a taxpayer number. Interestingly, you don't actually have to be in Brazil to apply for a CPF. You could be in the US and never been to Brazil, and you could still apply for a CPF. So if a person, a tourist, or a person who's never been to Brazil wants to buy real estate in Brazil, they can. However, they will need a CPF. And a foreigner who's never been to Brazil can apply for a CPF. My advice to most people, by and large, apply for the CPF before you get here. It's just easier. You're already here and you're going to spend more than a month here, get a CPF. It's free. It's not challenging. If you need help, reach out to us.
Perfect. See, you hear that, guys? CPFs are free. What do you need to get your okay? So what do you need to get your CPF if you're outside of Brazil? What do you need to get your CPF and you're in Brazil if you're in Brazil?
Oh, that I can't tell you off the top of my head because that's what our girls in the office do. Um, what I believe it is a passport of
Hmm.
a selfie where in the selfie they can see your face. They can also see the details on the passport. It's an application. It's an address. It can be in the US. It doesn't matter. But there's a website where you register, and then you send an email with these details. The email that the selfie comes from must be the same one that you register on the form. But uh, I don't personally handle CPFs for clients. That's either Danny, Amanda, Carty, Paul. That's the team that does that.
Okay.
Anything to do with interfacing with Brazil, and I will happily admit why. I don't actually go to Policia Federal or the Ministry of Justice or do any of that stuff. First of all, I don't have the Portuguese language skills, but that's not the real issue. The real issue is I don't have the stamina to deal with the institutions of Brazil, but the girls in the office do. They're Brazilians. They have the DNA for that. I would exercise caution to any foreigner who thinks that they can uh, run circles around these Brazilian institutions. They can't.
Mm-mm,
It's a very tiring process.
definitely not. Listen, guys, this is why you leave stuff up to the professionals. I put everything in Mike's hands, and he is taking great care of me. So we basically went over uh, process for veterans, retirees, whether you're a cop or you've been working, you're getting Social Security. We've gone over that. It's very easy for you. Um, Prime examples. These for me, it took me about maybe 5 months, 3 to 5 months, and this is the end process. So, Mike, can you explain to me and to everyone else what exactly can I do with this card now that I
Well,
have?
that yeah, that so that card identifies you as, in your case, as a foreigner, resident, legal resident in Brazil. So essentially, what that means is you have the right. You're no longer a tourist. You are a foreigner that's legally resident in Brazil. You don't have to carry a passport anymore. So you don't have to carry a passport or a photocopy of your passport to legally identify you in Brazil. You can just carry that card. You could use that card to open a bank account at any bank. You can use that card to exit and enter Brazil uh, with your passport and not enter as a tourist. You can lease an apartment or rent an apartment in the long-term market, which is the normal market. Uh, you essentially can do a lot of things with that card. The only thing you can't really do, and coming back to it again, is you can't vote, you can't run for president. You're not corrupt enough to run for president, Freed. You can not join the army. You can't work. And when I say work, work is a very fragile term. You can work remotely for a foreign company, but you can't work in Brazil for a Brazilian company. Um, there is some discussion at the moment as to whether you could set up a company in Brazil. You can set up a company, but you're not meant to be working for the company. So we're looking into that for our clients at the moment. But with that card, essentially, you can legally remain in Brazil for as long as that card is valid for.
Okay, so you mentioned traveling the card. So you're telling me that I could go to the airport, buy a flight to Peru or Argentina, and I don't need to go with my U.S. passport. I could just go with this.
No, you will definitely need your passport for international travel. However, when you exit, you will definitely need, when you enter or exit Brazil, you will definitely need a passport. However, when you enter and exit Brazil, you show them your residency card. And what you'll find is that immigration in Brazil treat you wonderfully. They welcome you with open arms. They may even call you brother. Uh, so what happens is, let's say you want to fly to Santiago, Chile. When you exit Brazil, you show your passport and the residency card. They stamp you. They look it up on the computer. Yep, all good. Thank you very much, Freed. Have a great time. Thanks, brother. Stamp your passport. Out you go. When you come back into Brazil, let's say you're flying into Guarulhos in Sao Paulo, show your passport and the residency card. Hey, brother, great to have you back again. Enjoy Brazil. That's pretty much it. Because you have your residency card, you're not entering Brazil as a tourist. You're entering as a legal resident.
Okay. So if I'm entering Brazil with my residency card, on the enter, do they still stamp your passport?
That's interesting. I was just in Florida recently, like very last 3 days. 3 days ago, I was in Florida. When I entered USA, they didn't stamp my passport. When I exited USA, they didn't stamp my passport. When I exited Brazil, they did not stamp my passport. However, when I re-entered Brazil, they stamped my passport. It's hit and miss. One thing I can assure your listeners is whether you have stamps in your passport or not, Polícia Federal, Brazilian Federal Police, have a very, very accurate and very good record of your travel history in and out of Brazil by plane. So for our clients, we can request a travel report that will show the date that they entered for the last for the last 20 years, the date they entered, the flight they entered on, the officer that signed them in, how many days they were here for, the passport number they used. So I assure listeners that Polícia Federal is not stupid. They might do some questionable things sometimes, but that does not make them stupid. They do have all the information on their computer.
Right. Yeah, guys, don't come down here thinking it's the DR all lax. They are on top of things out here, surprisingly.
Yeah.
So Jojo asked if he has his residency, does he have to stay in Brazil?
Nope. Because a person has residency does not mean that they have to live in Brazil. Once a person has residency, they are free to come and go as they choose.
Okay.
The one catch with that, I would just probably add it as a caveat, is in Jojo's case, or let's say in Freed's case, because that's easier. Freed has residency here. Let's say it's issued for 4 years, just as hypothetical example. If Freed were to leave Brazil today, if he remains outside of Brazil for 730 consecutive days, 2 years, his residency would lapse. So Freed does not need to live in Brazil. However, if he's out of Brazil for 730 consecutive days, his residency would lapse. We'd have to reapply for it again. It would be a pain. I would encourage him to return on the 728th day. I'll have a beer with him at the airport and he can fly straight out again and be renewed for another 2 years. And a cigar.
Mm-hmm.
I'd even have a cigar with you, mate.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah, we can do cigars. So I hope that answers your question, Jojo. So once you have this residency, it's not like you're in jail and you can't go anywhere else. But you just have to, keep it under the 730 days, right?
Keep
And
it clear.
I keep going back to this, but I really love like the information on the family visa, that extending. So like if one person in the family gets it, then it can extend to the wife, to the kids,
Yes.
or whoever
Yep.
they're taking care of. Because and I have to ask you, because I was talking to Uncle Alan, and you spoke to him also, Alan, and he's trying to come down here to do some stuff for veterans in Brazil. Do you talk to a lot of veterans? Like, or have you worked with a lot of veterans in terms of residency?
Yes, Americans, yes. Yeah, we do help a lot of veterans, and primarily because application for residency in Brazil is not a simple process. It's not straightforward. It's not cookie cutter. We help all sorts of clients from all backgrounds. It's not just Americans or veterans. For instance, we recently helped a client who is an American citizen with a German birth certificate, but the person doesn't speak German, has no connection with Germany. I think a lot of you can probably put two and two together. Her parents were in the military, and 30 years ago were stationed in Germany. That happened back then, and it still happens today. So she has a German birth certificate, but she has no idea what to do with it, no idea how to get it apostilled, no idea how she has no skills in the German language. And it just happened to be fortunate that she came to us, and I have an extended family in Germany. I speak more German than Portuguese, and we were able to solve the problem. And she's very happy. She's in Rio. She's on a student residency, and she's enjoying it. So
Okay.
there are. I guess overall, what I'm trying to say is nothing of this. There's no two clients are ever the same. Nothing is cookie cutter. It's not the same. It's not one size fits all. Definitely not. But we do have quite a few veteran clients, and more than happy to help them.
Okay. Yeah, I asked that question because normally, once a veteran becomes an expat, they like to like be in the vicinity or community with other veterans. So I asked you personally, where with all the veterans you have, where have they gone to? Rio or in Sao Paulo or just spread out throughout Brazil?
What we're finding is that there's pockets of foreigners. So obviously the traditional spots like Rio and Sao Paulo, we have those two cities covered with teams in both and offices in both. What we're finding is there's a pocket in the northeast along the coast there because it's beautiful up there. I'm not sure if you've been up there, Fried, but I was recently there maybe 2 months ago. It's pretty impressive. There's also a pocket in Florianopolis in Santa Catarina down south. That island of Florianopolis is a magnet for gringos, for foreigners. But the northeast is also very popular. So while there is obviously Sao Paulo and Rio for expats because they're big cities, there's more to Brazil than just Rio and Sao Paulo. It's an enormous country. It has lots to see and lots to do, lots of opportunity for foreigners. So what we're seeing is more clients in Recife, more clients in Salvador, more clients in Itacaré, Ilhéus, Porto Seguro, clients in Belo Horizonte, clients that are in rural, and I do mean very rural locations, rural Sao Paulo that takes 6 hours, 7 hours to drive to. So there are people of all backgrounds all over Brazil. Yeah.
Okay. That's cool. Yeah, because I know you spoke to Alan on the side and what he's thinking about. So we're just trying to get an idea for the demo for a specific demographic and how to proceed with that. So Karina Bonoche, thank you for watching. EJ Creative says great information, fellas. I'm hoping you're paying attention. I want to ask for what if you're a freelancer, right? What if you work for yourself and like EJ does, and you want to come down to Brazil to live? What type of visa can you apply for? So say like somebody that works in photography or videography, how can they prove to Brazil their income or so on? Or you said they can't come here to work specifically, right? So what can a freelance?
Yeah, so that's interesting. The definition of work in Brazil is it's not, I mean, it's clear cut for me, but it's not clear cut in the traditional sense. As an example, a person who works for, let's say, Hertz in the US, let's say they're a programmer for Hertz rental cars. They could come to Brazil with their laptop, sit in a hotel room or on the beach in Ipanema, and they could sit on their laptop and start, doing work. That is not considered work in Brazil because they're working for their home base in the USA. However, I would not recommend that foreigner to leave their hotel room and go onto a Hertz rental site and do work there. That's a bridge too far for me. So in terms of a freelancer, they are allowed to do photography and things like that. However, in terms of visa and everything, it really would depend on their specific circumstances. How long do they want to be in Brazil for? If you're an American citizen at the moment, if you want to spend 3 to 6 months, you can do that on a tourist visa, a visa on arrival. However, come October 1st, 2023, Brazil will require Americans, Canadians, Japanese, and Australians to have a visa prior to entering Brazil. That's very, very important. So at the moment,
Let's talk about that, bro.
yeah, sure.
Yeah, so we know it's being implemented. It is due to the new regime going into office, but what exactly happens? Where do people have to apply? And is that something that your services can help the first time traveler?
We can help clients with all sorts of things. It could be just document issuance, it could be visas, it could be residencies. We I spend a lot of my time helping clients that are helping people that are non-clients, just giving them guidance. So Brazil, through the new government of Lula, has returned to the status quo the requirement for Australians, Japanese, Canadians, and Americans to obtain a visa prior to entering Brazil. So at the moment, it is visa on arrival. It's pretty much just arrive at the airport, they'll stamp your passport, good for 90 days, have a great time. And if you wanted to, you could renew it to make it a consecutive 180 days. Lula has come in from the 1st of January and has returned it back to the old standard, which is about reciprocity. I can't even say the word. Basically, how America treats Brazil is how Brazil will treat Americans. Now, I don't want to get into the politics of it all. However, come the 1st of October, that will come back to existence, where citizens flying on those passports of USA, Canada, Japan, and Australia will need a visa. The actual details of applying for that visa, nothing's been released yet. And dare I say it, who knows if they actually keep to their 1st of October. 1st of October is only 6 months away, which is not a long time for a country to roll out amongst all their consulates and embassies around the world how to actually implement this. Remembering that you could have a Canadian citizen in Berlin, Germany, needs a visa. So they still need to actually roll this out to all countries, all consulates, all embassies. However, having saying all of that, I would say what Brazil will do will have some sort of e-visa or electronic visa. I don't think consulates around the world want hundreds of people applying for visas in person. That's not what consulates want. I think it'll be similar to how the USA treats ESTAs. As an Australian citizen, I apply for an ESTA to go to the USA. It's a 10-minute process. Fill in a form, wait for approval. It takes 10 minutes, done. So that's what I think will happen. But at the moment, there's very scant information. There's very, very little information about what that visa will look like, what the application process would look like. What I would say to first-time travelers or return travelers is I would not let that visa requirement stop you from coming to Brazil. I think if the application for a simple visa prevents you from coming to Brazil, then I think you're missing out on what Brazil has to offer.
Okay, so it's similar to the Dominican Republic. So when you fly into the Dominican Republic, you have to fill out an e-ticket before you actually leave the states, and that's your visa and your information where you're staying.
Yep.
So it'll basically be something along the same about like where you're staying, your flight, when are you leaving, how long you're staying for, or how long you plan on staying for.
Yeah, I think it'll be something like that. So about 8 years ago, 9 years ago, I applied for a visa as an Australian citizen to come to Brazil. Back then, Australians needed to apply for a visa, like what they will have to do in October. And I had to send my passport off to the consulate in Canberra, which is the capital in Australia, where the Brazilian embassy is. And the application was relatively straightforward. It took about 2 weeks, 3 weeks. I can't even remember. It wasn't even that important. I spent more time on United looking for mileage flights out of Melbourne, Australia, via US to Brazil, then onto Frankfurt, Germany. But it's a relatively simple process. I think it'll be like an e-visa. That's what I think. And I think when you look into it, it sort of makes some sense. I see both sides of the coin with Brazil requiring a visa. I think Brazil will simply do a name match against Interpol, against Europe, global databases of known criminals. I think the consulate in the country of issue may do just a basic check on social media, maybe make sure that the person wasn't in the newspapers a month ago. I don't know. I have no idea what it looks like. I've never worked for a consulate, but I would say that if a person has, if a person's has outstanding warrants and things like that, no, I would not apply for a visa. But if a person is just, hasn't committed any crimes, they've got nothing to worry about, I think it'll be a very simple process.
Did you have to pay for the visa?
8 years ago, I believe I did. It's actually in my passport. If I find my passport, I think it's downstairs. I think I did, but it was such a trivial amount of money. It doesn't even, it's probably less than a packet of cigarettes in Australia.
Okay.
It was probably like 30 reais, 40 reais, 50. It was something trivial free. It would have been less than, I measure things in packets of cigarettes, depending on which country I'm in.
All right, no problem. All right, so that's good to keep in mind, folks. October 1st, or so they say, October 1st, Brazil will implement the visas on arrival for Americans, Australians, Japanese, and
No, it won't be visa on arrival. There's visa on arrival now. Sorry, Fred, to jump on you.
Mhm.
At the moment, it's visa on arrival. As an Australian, Japanese, Canadian, American, you can arrive tomorrow up to September 30th. You can just arrive with your passport and just get entry. You get 90 days. After October 1st, you will need a visa before entering Brazil. You need to go to the Brazilian or go on the website of the Brazilian consulate and apply for a formal visa. However, I really don't think it's going to be that challenging.
Yeah,
hopefully
not.
I think they'll make it very cool, to be honest.
Yeah, hopefully they make it easy, because I myself can't picture me having to find a consulate where I'm at, a Brazilian consulate where I'm at, to go apply for a visa to go to Brazil. It's like it's really gonna be a nip in the butt. So hopefully it's not too complicated.
I don't think it'll be complicated. I recall 8 years ago, I sent my passport, couriered my passport to the consulate with the application. It came back 2 weeks later, less than two. I think it was about 2 weeks. I don't know what it was. It was a non-trivial thing.
Okay, perfect. Profe, how's it going? What's good, bro? I see you. Jojo asks, this is another question I wanted to ask you. After how long can I apply for a Brazilian passport after getting my residency? Is that possible?
It is possible, provided. Couple of things here. The term residency is very vague. There are many different types of residency. If I could use my case as an example, I am married to a Brazilian, so I have family reunion permanent residency. So I could apply for a passport. When I say a passport, I could apply for Brazilian citizenship or naturalization after 1 year of holding residency and passing a Portuguese proficiency exam. Because I can't speak Portuguese to save myself, and Fried will back me up on this, it's 15 years without the Portuguese proficiency exam. So therefore, yes, under permanent residency, you can apply for naturalization and then apply for a passport. I think that's what you mean by applying for a passport. First, you have to become a citizen, then you apply for the passport. So if Jojo is, let's say Jojo's out of Michigan and he's married to a Brazilian in Rio de Janeiro or wherever in Brazil, he has his residency, permanent residency. If he speaks Portuguese, and you don't have to be fluent, you just have to pass an intermediate level, then 12 months of residency, of holding the card or the protocol, being a resident, Jojo would be entitled to become naturalized Brazilian. And once he's a citizen, he would be entitled to apply for a passport, which takes about 2-3 weeks. Now, a lot of people on the internet will say it's a minimum of 12 months. It's minimum 12 months residency with Portuguese proficiency. However, in reality, pragmatically, the Portuguese proficiency test is only offered a couple of times a year. Therefore, minimum 1 year of residency plus the Portuguese proficiency plus the application process, I would estimate 2 to 3 years with Portuguese proficiency. Without Portuguese proficiency, minimum 15 years. So I'm stuffed.
Minimum of 15 years on permanent residency. So I myself, with this, I would have to wait till my 4-year mark, or I could go at 1
Well,
year mark.
No, 15 years without permanent residency. I take that back. Without Portuguese proficiency. So, because I don't speak Portuguese, it would be 15 years for me. Now, I'm about a third of the way there, to give you an idea. In terms of, that's for me as a permanent resident. In terms of freed, does your card say permanent residency, or has it got indefinite?
What would it say? That on the side it says residente.
But it doesn't say indefinitive or something like that.
No.
No, so you would have to wait to have.
No, it doesn't say indefinite. No.
I think I'd have to check with the team here, but I think you'd have to wait until it's indefinite.
Okay, so about 4 years.
One thing I would be cautious of, Jojo, is asking or requesting for naturalization of Brazilian national. There really isn't a huge, from what I can tell, huge benefit to permanent residency versus naturalization. Some countries, people should be aware, some countries don't allow dual passports, dual citizenship. And this is something, I think Australia does not allow dual citizenship. Like, I would never surrender my Australian citizenship. So just be aware of that. You need to do some homework because each person's case is different.
Right. Each person's case is different. I myself, that's
I lost you, Fred.
Yeah, you're breaking up. I myself would like to go down that road and apply for a Brazilian passport eventually. But definitely thank you for clearing that up. I was curious on how long it would take.
It depends on the type of residency that the person holds, ultimately.
Okay. And Mike, do you have any so I want you to talk a little bit more about your services as we get ready to wrap up here. I put your email and number in the description so that people know how to reach you. So you're talk a little about your consultations, and I also want you to talk about the common pitfalls and how to avoid stepping on certain landmines when going through this process of residency in Brazil.
Yeah, so the services that we provide at Client Immigration is tailored solutions. So we don't treat people like a number, or we're not a cookie cutter outfit. So what that means essentially is we treat all clients as they have unique circumstances. They have their own background. They have their own circumstances that need to be managed. The clients also want their own way. Like some clients, for instance, want to go from USA to Brazil, then spend a month in Italy, and then come back to Brazil to have their residency all wrapped up. So we're not a cookie cutter outfit. We provide tailored solutions to people. I would emphasize caution with anybody applying for residency in Brazil. It's not simple. It's not straightforward. That's not me saying that you have to come to us. It's not. You need to be comfortable with the service provider that you have or engage. And the services we provide, for instance, could be as random as an American is married to a Brazilian. The children are born in USA. They want Brazilian equivalent birth certificates, and then Brazilian passports. We'll help with that documentation. At the moment, as an example, my brother is an Australian, German dual citizen, married to a Brazilian, has 2 kids, needs help with getting Australian citizenship, Australian passport, German citizenship, German passport, a USA ESTA, a visa for USA for the baby. We help with what we call anchor babies, where 2 foreigners come into Brazil, have a baby, and the baby is a Brazilian by definition of being born in Brazil. We help the parents get family reunion or residency, permanent residency based on the baby. That is not something that is simple. That takes a lot of work. Then there's other cases where a client just wants to stay in Brazil more than 6 months. And we ask them, if you want to stay in Brazil 30 days extra, 60 days extra, that's easy to solve. If you want to stay 3, 6, 12 months, 2 years longer, we'll put you on a student residency. We help Brazilians and foreigners get married because the documentation alone is not simple for the foreigner. So we try and dive deep as much as we can. I was recently in Florida doing a course on how to take people's fingerprints. Because in Brazil, there are no courses on taking fingerprints for civilians. It's all reserved for law enforcement. But in Florida, they have these courses. So I did a course on how to take people's fingerprints. So we're able to now streamline that process for Americans and Canadians in Brazil. So that's the sort of services we offer. And we dive deep. We try and constantly sharpen the pencil for our clients. And we're relatively happy with what we do.
Perfect. Thank you, Mike. And for consultations, do you prefer people reach out to you through email or through WhatsApp?
Yeah, that's interesting you mentioned that because they can contact me through WhatsApp, through email, through Facebook Messenger. One thing we offer is a video conference with prospective clients, random people, not just prospective clients. We offer video conferences to anybody and everybody to help guide, give suggestions, stress test their ideas, and that's 100% free, obligation free. The idea is a client can have a chat with me. They may have some ideas of what they'd like to do in private, discuss some ideas. And I'll just sit there and say, hey, that's a good idea, but these things need to be changed a little bit because otherwise you're going to run into this problem. And make sure you think about this. And that's based on if they do it on their own. I'm still providing free advice to them if they do it on their own. If they engage us, we solve everything. We basically do everything we possibly can for the client that we can do. And what that means essentially is we only bug the client when we absolutely need to. If we need to have their fingerprints, we need to bug them. If we need the photo of the client, if the client needs to be at Policia Federal, there's no other way around that. We need them there. But we do liaise with the client about dates and times to be there. So essentially, they can contact me however they want, email, WhatsApp, Facebook. Happy to have a video conference with them and chat with them. One of the more interesting challenges we've received recently is a foreigner who's married to a Brazilian, but the Brazilian is in jail. And that creates a challenge because
Wait, you got to rewind that a little. A foreigner who is married to a Brazilian,
and the Brazilian is in jail. Now, the challenge is this: the Brazilian actually has to be at Polícia Federal to sign a statement. That's going to be rather challenging when the Brazilian is in jail. But we will solve that problem. So these are the sorts of things that client or prospective clients or people just in general come to us, and we listen to their circumstances. We ask them what they want, and we provide some strategy and direction and solve the problem. Or if they want us to engage, we solve the problem for them. That's generally how it's done. But the actual video conference is 100% free and obligation free.
you guys heard that 100% free video conferences where you guys could ask Mike all the questions you want. Not with me, where you write on Instagram and I see it a month later. Mike is very on top of that. So make sure you guys get your questions out, your last minute questions out right now, because you do know we are an hour ahead of you. Thank God it's not 2 hours anymore. That used to be a killer, Mike, having to start a live stream at 11 because that meant it was 9 o'clock back in the States. Absolute killer.
I don't know what you're complaining about. I'm working 24/7 these days.
That's a killer. That really messed up. That had my steep schedule all over the place. So
student visa has an age limit. No, does not have an age limit. We have elder students in our language course. We have secured them student residency. No age limit. So retirement status and student residency. No age limit.
Okay, so I want to ask this question. I know somebody out there is thinking it. If I apply for the student visa, do I actually have to go to the class or to the school?
No. You can take online classes. However, the rules state that the individual must have a certificate of enrollment showing 15 hours per week.
Okay.
That's what the rules state. Now, there are a lot of language courses in Brazil that will provide that certificate of enrollment, and that will be fine.
Okay, so it can legit just be a language course.
Absolutely. We do this every week. So in our language business, we provide certificates of enrollment. Students are studying languages. It does not need to be Portuguese. That's the other interesting thing. It can be any course. It could be a student, an American student or an American citizen could come to Brazil and theoretically learn or do a degree in how to grow marijuana, how to fish farm, how to do all sorts of weird things. And I'm not saying that they're weird. I'm saying the student can be a student of any course, provided if it's a university course or a college course, it needs to have an MEC code, M-E-C, a MEC code. If it's not a MEC code, it can be a language course. Now, just because a foreigner comes to Brazil does not necessarily mean they have to learn Portuguese. They could learn French or German. The point being is that if the person is a student, they need to do a minimum of 15 hours, 15 contact hours per week. Now, that could be in person and it could also be online. So there's the best way to describe this is we're not a cookie cutter outfit. We tailor solutions for our clients. We have many clients doing many things, and not all the time are they in class studying.
Okay. So if you guys missed earlier in the live, we stated that the student visa is the better option in terms of instead of the digital nomad visa. So,
I think generally it is. However, no two cases are ever the same.
Right. those cases are ever the same. So how do you find out? Do your consultations. Um,
Yeah, I think so because each person is unique. Some some people, for instance, have their own business, their own LLC, and when they apply for digital nomad, Brazil does not want to see LLC. What they want to see is contracts between the LLC and clients. Um, so the other issue is tax. That's a big one. So no two clients are ever the same.
okay, perfect, perfect. Yep. So guys, Mike is out here in Sao Paulo with me, actually. So if you guys have any questions, you'll be in good hands. I'm down the block, not literally down the block, but I'm here also. Listen, I legit just in July, I legit just gave Mike all of my documents. I was like, work your miracles, and then a few months later, I ended up with this. So I'm definitely here to test for that. That's my brother from the down under. Really helped me out, give me a peace of mind. I don't have to leave Brazil after the tourist visa. As soon as I got this, I opened a bank account like 2 days later from my home, from my
Yeah.
own home, from the app, from the applications. Is like very easy. Having your CPF, and then after the CPF having your residency card makes life super easy here in Brazil. And
Sweet.
another question we have is, can you do a student visa forever?
No. Well, no. The answer is forever, no. However, we are working on something a little bit more creative for one client. Um, it's a mother with a young child, and the child will enroll in school, primary school, and the mother will apply for family reunion status of their son's primary school enrollment.
Right. Can you break that down? So the mother, she's done the student visa, but she wants to stay here. She wants
No,
to be.
so the mother is a foreigner with a child born overseas. So they're both foreigners. The child, will call the child 8 years old, more or less. The mother came to us with uh, a desire to get residency in Brazil, but at that stage, the mother didn't disclose that they had a child. Um, we recently became aware that the mother has a child. We actually met these clients in Porto Seguro recently and spent a day on the beach with them. We've realized very quickly that the mother had a child, a young child, that would need to be enrolled in school in Brazil, primary school. Primary school, by definition, means student residency. The mother, instead of the mother applying for residency and the son applying for family reunion status, we inverted it.
Hmm.
The, the son applies for the student visa or the student residency, and the mother will apply for family reunion status. Because the son has at least 10 plus years of study, it's far better. Does that make sense? It's not the mother that applies for the primary residency, it's the son. And the mother applies for family reunion instead of the inverse. So it's the opposite direction. And if the mother had applied for college, as an example, maximum would be 3-4 years, maximum. If it's a language course, it'd be 2 years. But because the son is quite young and the son has maybe 10, 12 years left of education, the mother can apply for family reunion status of the son's student residency or student visa.
Okay. So we have a case. So I've sent you someone who um, checks off the income to live in Brazil, but isn't retired, and I believe you've guided him toward the student visa. So on the student visa, can you say open up your own business down here?
Anybody can open a business in Brazil. A tourist can open a business in Brazil. What they can't do is work. The other thing that the foreigner needs is a local representative. The business would need a local representative. Like if it's a limited company, it would need a director, and the director needs to be a resident in Brazil. So there are there are or structures of business in Brazil.
Hold on, Mike. Start
So
that
I want to be
over.
cautious
We lost you for.
here.
Hold on, we have
Sorry,
yeah, we lose. You're like in and out.
Yeah. Let me check my internet here. I've got this fantastic internet that doesn't work. Oh, now I know why I'm not on the network. So I want to be cautious here because technically a student resident can set up an ME or an MEI. An MEI is microempresa independency or independent. Technically speaking, a foreigner can open a business in Brazil, like a limited company. What they can't do is work for that business, so they can't be a director. This is where our lawyer comes into play. So this is where Jacqueline really is on top of her game, and she can communicate to the clients in English and explain the structuring of the business and the tax. Technically speaking, a foreigner can open a business. The foreigner without work rights can't work for the business. That's the challenge. There are ways free to legally avoid stepping on that landmine, but again, every case is unique, very unique.
Okay, that's good to know. It's good to know that your firm could basically handle all avenues and are prepared for all avenues. That's very like ingenious, like being able to have the 8-year-old son apply for the visa because then the mom will get it. This is very it's very different. You don't really hear about that a lot.
Yeah, we're not a cookie cutter outfit. So every client has a different background, a different story, a different situation. We have clients that have colorful FBI background checks, very colorful FBI background checks. We have clients with FBI background checks that are 30 pages long, and we still get them residency. So just because a client has a past history, it's not an end game. We can still get them residency. That's not a problem.
Okay, that's good to know. So, Mike, before we wrap up, what are like some common mistakes people should avoid?
Well, look, I will be honest with you. The first common mistake is thinking it's easy, thinking that Policia Federal or the ministry is there to help you. I think that's a fallacy. In my opinion, one of the first mistakes is thinking that this is simple and straightforward and easy, and the individual can do it themselves. Some can. There's no two ways about that. Some can. Many who try fail. Even the ones that do succeed will tell you, if I had to do it all over again, they would just engage experts. What's important is not whether you engage us or somebody else. What's important is that the person engages an expert that is competent and they're comfortable with and they trust. They're the three key things that are vitally important. So people who want to try and do this themselves, by all means, go for it. Give it a go. If you need help, reach out to us. We can give you some guidance. We can give you some suggestions. We can give you some tips. What we can't do is guarantee anything because we're not going to be there at Policia Federal. We're not going to be there at the ministry. What we can say is if you want to give it a go yourself, give it a go yourself. However, understand that the failure rate is high. you're looking at about, and I don't have hard statistics, you're looking at about 75% failure rate. That's not a great strike rate, in my opinion. So one of the common failures is thinking that you can do this yourself. Now, let me give you some examples of pitfalls. The FBI report or any criminal history report is only valid for 3 months from the date of issue. This is vital for your listeners because it takes 8 weeks to apostle an FBI report. So in reality, what people who are trying to do this themselves, my advice would be to do this. Think months ahead. You want to think of a date. You want to ask yourself, if you've got to cook a dinner for people, when do you want the ribs to be ready? Oh, you want the ribs to be ready at 8 p.m.? Well, you better start cooking them at 8 p.m. You better start cooking them at 8 a.m. You're thinking months in advance in terms of a residency because we've got to get person's fingerprints. We've got to courier those fingerprints to the FBI. The FBI takes about 12 hours, maybe 24 hours to issue an FBI report, but it takes 8 weeks to apostle. So all of these things take time, but it's only valid for 3 months for the date of issue. Therefore, it's only going to be valid in a very small window of time, months out. And that's where we have to have all the pieces of the puzzle meet that appointment date. So it's not simple. And that's just for an FBI report.
Oh yeah, yeah. FBI report, guys, was the stickiest situation for me. Luckily, I happened to be in the States at the time, so I just found an FBI channeler in Long
Yep.
Island. Did my fingerprints, had it sent to a friend's house. The friend then sent it out to wherever Mike needed it to go. All while I was down here in Brazil. All
Yeah.
while
So what we have now is document services providers in Virginia and Georgia. So for our American clients in Brazil, what we can do is fingerprint them, get their signature on 2 pieces of paper. After that, they're fine. They can go back to the beach and drink beer. What we'll do is we'll courier the FBI report and the request to the FBI. They'll issue an FBI report. It'll be sent to our document services providers in Virginia or Georgia. They will get it apostilled. They will take a scan of it, the apostilled FBI report. They'll send us the scan. We'll go tick, tick, tick. Looks fantastic. Please courier it down. While it's being couriered down, we've taken the PDF and we're getting it sworn translated at our corporate accounts. We have corporate accounts with sworn translators in Sao Paulo and Rio. By the time the sworn translation comes back, the FedEx arrives, we make them together. We've bought ourselves a few days by getting ahead of the curve with the sworn translations. It's done, it's ready. Add the birth certificate that came in weeks ago. If it's a student residency, we add the certificate of enrollment. If it's a retirement residency, we add the extra documentation. Done. But it's not simple. It's a project, not a process.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Guys, like Mike said, it was literally one of those things like, okay, I got the hard part out the way. I did the FBI fingerprint, submitted my birth certificate, and I legit just came to Sao Paulo and I forgot about it until it was time. And like, all right, hey, the appointment's ready to go to the Policia Federal. Someone from the firm did come down with me and spent the whole time with me there, so I wasn't there alone. You won't be there alone. There's always Mike and his people always have somebody to go through the process with you.
That's really important to understand. Is if your client, if your viewers engage a service provider, my strong advice would be make sure in writing that service provider will be with you at Policia Federal. A good, genuine service provider will never, ever encourage clients to go to Policia Federal on their own. That is fraught with danger. It's high risk. So how we operate is we never encourage a client to go to Policia Federal on their own. Never. It doesn't matter what the client would be going for, we're going to be there. It won't be me, it'll be someone from the team. As Freed says, when Freed's appointment was scheduled, Freed turned up, someone from the team was there, stepped him through it, fingerprints, photo, application done, residency card done. Never should a person go to Policia Federal on their own for a residency appointment. It's just high risk. It's crazy high risk.
Especially if you don't speak the language.
Even if you speak the language, you're going to stick out as a gringo, as a foreigner. You're going to stick out really, really heavily, and you're just asking to be taken advantage of, in my opinion. That's just me speaking from 8 years experience in Brazil. I wouldn't recommend it. And whichever service provider your clients or your viewers go with, what I would say is this: just make sure that the service provider you go with does attend each and every Policia Federal appointment, each and every appointment at the cartorio. The cartorio is like a notary office. Nobody should be going to these government institutions on their own.
Well, hold on, Mike. Let me correct you there. The viewers, in this case, the service provider you guys should be going to is Mike, right? I'm here giving an endorsement for Mike, right? The proof is in the pudding right here. Got my shiny Brazilian residency card in 4 years. I will be permanent. This is an endorsement, right? Hit up Mike. Information is in the description, in the comments. Let him know Chapapa sent you. He will take care of you. Best choice I have made by far. You guys have tracked the nightmare of me trying to get residency in Dominican Republic. Came to Brazil, it was easy peasy. You know, even though I barely see Mike. Last time I seen him was New Year's Eve. You know, New Year's Eve. He's always working, but you know that's my guy. That's my friend, and he is a great person to do business with, to help anybody. Whether you're coming out here alone, you're coming out here getting with your wife, or you're getting married. Listen, no other firm. Go to Mike, guys. Save yourself the headache. Go to Mike. All of my disabled veterans, if you're 60% above, 70%, 80% above, Social Security retirees, retired state troopers, cops, firefighters, go to Mike. You know, like I said, I have a friend who's retired state trooper. A lot of veterans living abroad in Colombia. Listen, we're working on things down here for you also, VA clinic. Just go to Mike. It's very easy. Very simple, very easy.
Yeah, I think that's really a really good point you raise there, is that your viewers can come to me and have a video conference, and I'll listen to their scenario, their situation, their desires and their wants. And what I will do is I will tailor us. I will give them free guidance, free advice, free suggestions, and I'll stress test their ideas. We had a person, I should say, come to us today about an investor visa and their ideas. And I stress tested their ideas, and I said, have you considered this? Have you considered that? I would be cautious about this. I'd be cautious about this, but your overall plan is sound. It just needs a bit of refinement. That whole thing is, you know,
hold on, Mike. Losing you again,
really
Mike.
Important.
Oh, we just lost you again.
Yeah. What I was saying is, I'm lost. That wouldn't surprise an Australian in Brazil. Am I back on?
Yeah, you're back on now.
Yeah. So it's about finding a strategy according to the individual circumstances. It doesn't matter what your background is, what your criminal history is. It doesn't matter if you have less than $2,000. It doesn't matter if you have children that are under 24, over 24. Feel free to reach out to me. Happy to give you a video conference. Happy to give you some advice and guidance and listen to your situation and stress test your ideas. Maybe I can put you on the right path. Maybe I can't. What I can guarantee you is it'll be the best investment you make. It's a free video conference.
It's free. The best investment is free. Ladies and gentlemen, if you are looking to either get the student visa, retirement, investor, family union, work, one more thing I didn't get to cross because I do have a few friends that are asking about it. The refuge. Can you quickly explain the refugee visa?
Absolutely, absolutely. So Brazil recognizes the application for refugee status. So what we do is we will do pro bono work for genuine refugee applications. What that means essentially is, if you're a Ukrainian that's not wanting to go back to Ukraine because ultimately you're going to have to fight in a war that that's basically the situation. We will help you apply for refugee status in Brazil. We will do this completely pro bono. If you're a Russian, same situation. If you're a Syrian, same situation. If a person is a genuine refugee, we will provide our services pro bono, completely free. However, the caveat with that is it has to be a genuine application. So, if you're an Australian, a British, Canadian, or an American, unless your name is Julian Assange or Edward Snowden, we most likely don't consider that a genuine application. There may be some rare exceptions, but that's basically the best example I can give you. With a refugee application, it's actually not too bad. However, I don't think it will apply to the vast majority of the audience watching Freed's channel.
Mm, well, there is one country I have in mind because I have a friend here. He got refugee status to this country. Do you guys offer services for those coming from Haiti?
No, no. That we wouldn't provide services to Haiti. What I was trying to say is we do know of Americans and Australians that have applied for asylum, refugee
Hmm.
status in Brazil. They actually applied for refugee status in Brazil because they wanted to stay longer. These are people I would just refuse to drink with. I refuse to converse with because I just think that's taking the piss out of Brazil. It's taking the Mickey out of Brazil. In terms of Haiti, absolutely,
Hmm.
absolutely, no problems.
Okay, yeah, because I definitely have a few um, uh, Haitian acquaintances that have ran from Haiti, end up in the DR, but the DR isn't any better, so they've been asking about Brazil a lot. And I have a friend who just got his same ID card, but he applied for as asylum with his Haitian passport.
So Fried, if a person's application is genuine, we'll help them. And if it's a asylum or refugee case, we'll do it pro bono,
Okay,
provided it's genuine.
perfect, perfect. So I will put that information out there. Thank you, Mike. And last question: someone asked if can with a criminal background check, can you get a visa?
Yes, the answer is yes. We have clients. This is one of our specialties, actually. We see a lot of colorful background checks, very colorful background checks. Uh, we know what Policia Federal are looking for if a person has a criminal history. What's interesting is what's interesting is the that Brazil does not prohibit a person from applying for uh, residency based on their criminal history. What Brazil want to see is that the person has completed their punishment. That's not sometimes so easy because, first of all, the FBI never forgets. So, for instance, if Freed, as an example, hypothetically, got a DUI in his early 20s, it would still appear on his FBI background check. The other problem with that is the FBI background check will show what the punishment was, but it will never show whether Freed paid the punishment or fulfilled the punishment. So the answer to your question is yes, we have been able to secure residency for people with very, very colorful background checks. One of our recent successes was a US client with an FBI report that was at least 30 pages long. Um, it's one of those things that is case by case basis. The more serious the offence, the more that Brazil wants to see that the punishment was served. If that means it was a fine, they just want to see that the fine was paid. If the person had probation, they just want to see that the probation was fulfilled. Things like that.
All right, perfect. I hope that answers you guys' questions. For anyone who maybe felt a little timid or asked that question, have a dirty background, don't worry about it. Do your free consultations with Mike, and he will get you squared away. You have my word, he will get you squared away. This is the right person to help you out with when you're ready for your next chapter down here in Brazil. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm getting ready to close it out. We hit the 2 hour mark, and my strep throat is killing me. Definitely been talking a little bit more than I should have. But Mike, closing statements.
Closing statements is Brazil is a enormous country with plenty of opportunity. If you like big cities, there's Sao Paulo. There's also Rio, which is more close to the beach. There's rural Brazil. People who gain residency don't necessarily need to live in Brazil. A lot of them do because it's an attractive country because each dollar gets you 5 reais. That's one of the economic benefits. But Brazil has a lot to offer. Gaining residency does not mean you need to live in Brazil. You just have rights to come and go as you please. If you need help with any type of residency, any document preparation, marriage, civil union, or you just want to hear, or if you just have a strategy that you want to run by me, feel free to reach out to me. Happy to stress test it. I've been here 8 years. I've seen enough to know what goes on here. I can tell you things outside of immigration. For instance, let's say you want to buy an apartment and you ask me, how hard is it to find a cleaner? Well, it's not hard to find a cleaner, but you don't want to hire them for more than 3 days a week, okay? Because then they become an employee, and that's risky. What's it like to find an electrician? Well, it's very simple to find an electrician. They're called handymen. Then there's no such thing as a qualified electrician in Brazil. So these are the sorts of challenges that you'll hear me talk about. If you're talking about this, that, and the other, it might not be immigration related. Happy to have a conference call with anybody that needs help, needs advice, needs guidance, needs some stress testing. No problems at all.
All right, that's perfect. Thank you, Mike, so much. Listen, guys, you don't know how big this is for Mike to come up on the channel and give out this information that you really can't find anywhere else. I've been trying to get him for months.
Yeah, months.
Here, the brains behind the operation, who made all this possible for Chapapa to be live from Sao Paulo and give you all this content because of this man right here. So, Mike, we all thank you on the channel.
Residency, which is all of them. It's actually a really proud moment for me because I'm essentially helping them achieve one of their life goals, which is to be able to legally reside in the country. That's a really sort of puts hairs on the back of my neck. It basically makes me happy, makes me proud to help them. So yeah, I was proud to help you.
Thank you. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Oh, good, mate.
Stay tuned. You guys know the deal. Like the video, share it with your friends, share it with other vets. I'm still offering consultations myself. If you guys need anything, you can reach me on the email or on the IG to set up a consultation. And turn on the notification bells. Hit up Mike, guys. Free consultation. My consultations aren't free, but his consultations are free. He'll definitely get you in the right direction if you want to come down to Brazil. Until then, I'll catch you guys on the next episode. Mike, stay put.